And here we go today. Let's see if the sound is working. And let's get going. I forgot to talk. Yep, there we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the WDMA. And we're going to be talking about AI today. And mail, of course. And I was working, I'm in an ad agency roundtable, and I'm going to be thinking about how to express what I'm trying to do every day and how I'm trying to call out the nonsense that mostly is marketing and elevate the quality when I see it. So when I see it, I try to really call it out. And here's some. And this is one of the greatest uses of digital technology I've seen. And so here we go. Let's see.
You better watch out.
This is
Excuse me.
Hiya, can I help you?
I'm Buddy the Elf.
You must be here about the job. Nice costume.
Oh, it's not a costume. I'm an elf.
Okay, well, Simran here will show you your own.
What's this?
Checking
Beautiful.
it twice. Gonna find out who's naughty and nice.
What do you want for Christmas?
Santa Claus is coming.
Put in a good word with the big man.
I hope I lost a giant
He
elf.
sees you.
anyway. So we won't go through the whole thing. I did earlier in the Christmas season, but they got in touch with Will Ferrell, and they ASDA's colors. This is a great place to stop the picture. Are green and white, and that's elf. The elf costume is right on the button, so it was right up there with their PMS colors. And so the story is, now get over to the story, is that ASDA, I don't know if it's ASDA or ASDA, I don't know, it's in the UK, is not only the number one Christmas favorite, but the number one ad of 2022, which I think is pretty good. And thank you for that, Molly. And the nation's favorite ad. So I got to give them a call out for that. And that's according to John Evans' ad effectiveness testing stuff, which is mentioned in here someplace. John Evans. And John is my new favorite content creator because I featured him Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So, John, we're calling you out on that one, right? 2022 was an exceptional year for effectiveness. That's excellent. Okay, he believes that more brands and agencies bring their creative ideas forward, resulting in ads that deliver long-term brand building. So there's a lot of good in that article. I want you to get over to WDMA and subscribe. It's free, and you can get the show notes every day with my markups on most of them. Okay, so now we'll go over to Lindblad Expeditions, Advanced Analytics, paying off for Lindblad, which is, caught my eye because so few companies will, have gotten any payback on their investment in analytics. And so I thought, okay, this is great. Digital transformation of the sales process and the marketing channels behind the scenes at Lindblad Expeditions. We effectively doubled the organic link clicks to our website from social media channels as well as our on-platform media views versus 2021. Isn't that great? And they found that the digital was more effective maybe than their direct mail. The web, as opposed to we're seeing a higher incidence of people, particularly our core geographies such as Antarctica, Galapagos, and Alaska, that are coming in from the web as opposed to in response to brochures, letters, or emails. So maybe we can ditch the direct mail. So what's the problem here? What's the problem with this case study? Well, the problem is this incremental benefit? We don't know. And it could be. I'm not saying it isn't. Who knows, right? Who knows? Dolph going to reach out to Dolph, the CEO, and say, hey, was that incremental lift? Did you do holdout tests? How do you prove that? And especially, how do you prove it in digital? Very, very difficult. It's very difficult unless you just stop the digital. Because all that other stuff is also driving traffic. It depends a lot on your attribution. So if I get a mailing piece that mentions an Alaska cruise, which I'm interested in doing, okay, now I go to your website. Now I get a cookie, right? What was the causal force there? It was your mailing. Do you do match back? What if I give it to my friend who isn't my address, so it doesn't match anymore? It's very, very touchy, very difficult. And oftentimes the attribution gives you the answer you'd like, which it sounds like Dolph would like. So I hope you connect with me, Dolph, and we'll find out the real answer. Is that incremental lift from your digital transformation and advanced analytics? Okay? Don't know. Nobody knows. Okay, here's another one. AI helps Mars Pet Care increase conversion by 30%. Now, that's a really big claim, right? 30%. From May to October, images deemed viewer-friendly resulted in 30% higher conversion. And these are the takeaways. Consumers in different parts of the world, I like this one, have different preferences as to what makes an image appealing. Not hard to believe, is it? Not at all, right? Now, how do we verify that? How do we test that? How do we make sure that this isn't some coincidence? When image recognition software just was getting going, the military wanted to identify Army tanks in pictures. And so they showed the machine lots of pictures of Army tanks and lots of pictures of the same woods without the Army tanks. And after a while, the machine got so it could tell 100% of the time which pictures had Army tanks in it and which ones didn't. So they showed it a bunch of other pictures with Army tanks, and the machine completely struck out. And that's when they figured out that the Army tank pictures had been taken on a sunny day, and the forest pictures had been taken on a cloudy day, and that was what the machine was identifying. There's not a lot of information in this article about what the machine was identifying to tell us what drives effectiveness, what drives attractiveness of an image. Okay? The next step here, you have to take a step back and say, well, how do we predict things? How do we build a building and know that it's not going to fall down when we finish? How do we build the world into the future? How do we invest in the future? Well, there's a lot of steps to take, right? Because the future isn't the past. The past is always a little different. And we can only predict using past data. All data is historical. All data is in the past. And the future isn't there. So there's never a direct path. So what do? Well, we test the steel. We have specifications on steel girders and how strong they are. We specify the welds. We specify the load-bearing structure of the building. We basically build it like buildings that haven't fallen down. We test and test. We build hypotheses. We test and test. And what we do is we build a specification that we have pretty good assurance, pretty good confidence in, right? What do we do in marketing? In marketing, we go and hire Visit Artificial Intelligence. That's a brand name, Visit. Okay, Visit AI. We go hire them, and they give us what they deem to be, or they analyze our pictures, and it's not clear. Visit has a storehouse of images, and some images they grade as more attractive than others. Okay, not quite sure. I'd like to know more about this process, but it's not hard to know. I mean, it's not hard to imagine that some pictures are more attractive than others. right? It's not hard to imagine, right? And attractiveness can vary by group also, right? I took a few courses in aesthetics, and the idea that beauty is only in the eye of the beholder is nonsense. There's a symmetry to beauty. There's a lot of things that go into beauty that can be extracted, okay? But it's not 100%, and I don't know how machine learning would do it. But I can understand that having lined up with some of those attractiveness features, that there might be some sense to it, okay? That's the first step. The second step is, okay, now let's do advertising. Let's not just change our pictures to what Visit says is attractive, and our sales go up. Oh, fancy that, fancy. Could it be with Lindblad that maybe people were locked down in 2021, or if not locked down, feared travel, right? Feared the hassle of getting vaccinated for travel, wearing masks on a 12-hour flight. Could that have had an impact? But now all of a sudden the digital transformation makes their sales go up? Be careful, Lindblad, because unless you did split tests, unless you were able to analyze the incremental benefit, you've got nothing. You've got coincidence. Okay, so what's the next step for Visit? The next step is we do some ads with low-scoring Visit images, and we do some ads with high-scoring Visit images with the same audience. And then we try to figure out what the difference is between a high and a low-scoring image, right? And then we get into the tests in different areas of the world, okay? You don't just automatically change. Maybe there were more pets because of COVID. Another good point from David Foley, in case you don't think we're live here. Maybe people cared about their pets. Spent more time with their pets, got better pet food, and were forced to order online. So there's all sorts of things that can happen, and this is why testing is challenging. And if you don't believe it, just try to convince your CFO that your test was valid. They know more about what makes sense than most marketing people. Okay, so anyway, supposedly U.S. shoppers preferred flat 2D images. Japanese viewers liked many dogs on the package, whereas Americans only liked one dog on the package. Well, there's another one on the side there. Okay, but unless you have a theory, unless you have an observation, you form a hypothesis and you test it head to head in that audience, in that area, you don't know what the causal impact of that differentiation is. It may be nothing, right? If you want to do predictive modeling, you have to go through the steps. You have to test. You have to come up with a hypothesis. You don't just say, oh, well, according to Visit, consumers in Mexico prefer yellow and green, and we changed to yellow and green, and what do you know? Our sales went up. Could be completely circular. I have no idea why yellow and green might be better. Unless you can come up with a why, you really don't have anything you can take to the future. Okay? So, I'm skeptical. And just to finish up, we've gone almost too long again today. This is from John McKay at News Talk 870 radio station, and he asks, is this an example of deceitful, misleading advertising in the mail? And his main thing that he's complaining about is this nice big date here on the envelope, because it makes it look like a tax form or some kind of important official information. Should mailers be allowed to make mail look important? That's basically the article. And now, he might also note, and up here it says, basically this little box, sort of a Johnson box, says, this is important. That's all it says. But over here, this indicia says, basically, this is ad material from AARP. So if you're, I mean, it's one thing if you're 10 years old and you don't know the difference between an indicia and a stamp. But anyway, that's what that says. So it's not hard to figure out that this is not important tax information since the name of the sender is right there in the indicia. But anyway, he says there are many legitimate, this was great, John, to his credit, there are many legitimate, even money-saving offers and marketing comes in the mail, and marketing that comes in the mail. For example, one area grocery store puts out holiday meal specials in the mail, okay? But they don't put a big 2023 on it. We make sure to watch for their ridiculously great Thanksgiving and Christmas ads. So he's not against mail. And it's also another important point. There's probably people who hate that mail. Junk mail is usually in the eye of the beholder. And we're going to get back to the theme of today's show. Okay, but the large 2023 is intentionally made to look like a federal tax document, except for the AARP sticker on it. And then he goes and tries to figure out, he says that he believes that the CAN-SPAM Act applies to mail. I don't believe that it does. I believe that it actually only applies to email, but I may be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it does not appear to forbid a company from making a letter look like something more important, which is what we do. Or we put, fake handwriting cursive on the address or something to make it look like it came from your Aunt Nellie, but you probably know it didn't. So if this puff annoys you, you can report it to the FTC. I would recommend not the FTC, but rather your state attorney general, because they have much more flexible laws. And I've done some shows on this before, but they can often prosecute people for something that looks misleading to them. We used to have a standard that an ordinary person would say it looked misleading, but they've waived all that. Now they can just say, oh, this does look misleading to someone. So try your state attorney general, especially in Washington State. That was where John is from. You probably can get away with that kind of complaint, and you can put decent marketers out of business like never before. And that's the kind of world we live in, John. Or you might want to sit back and think, have you ever done a radio story and you put a somewhat deceptive but creative and engaging and hooking headline at the beginning of the story? Think of the famous War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells radio episode, right? Radio is just as guilty of this as anybody. And maybe there's a little bit of bias here. So anyway, and if you think it's filling up the landfills, check with Steve Falk, who says that mail is the most recyclable media in the world and is not that harmful to the environment. And if we weren't so crazy about CO2 for no good reason, we could burn it and generate more electricity for your electric car instead of burning coal. Have a great day. Like and share. Tell your friends to listen to the end because he gets a little crazy as usual. There's always a reward for the people that hang on to the end. Bye-bye.